Welcome back on the Good Morning Artesia radio show. I'm Gene Dow, and we're having a great discussion here on issues of the day. We've been talking border issues with Stephen McCutcheon, who is a county commissioner and has been down on the border with Yvette Harrell and other folks. Jerry Fanning is with us. He is... what is your title again, Jerry?
Public and Government Affairs.
Public and Government Affairs, gentlemen. And you've been talking about the redistricting for Eddy County. That's right. And we talked a little bit about county news, but then we've kind of getting into some of the other issues. Jerry talked about redistricting, and Stephen's been talking about a recent trip that you had down on the border and some of the border issues that you're dealing with. One of the things that we've seen is, I mean, you mentioned the numbers was 700 a day that just in the El Paso sector.
That's the slow day according to the Border Patrol. Yeah, average day is about 1,000.
And the El Paso sector at one time was held up by previous administrations as an example of between the wall and the patrols where we had a pretty safe, well, let's say a closed down sector. We didn't have a lot of people coming across the border in the El Paso sector. So I guess what you saw, what you observed, that's not the case anymore.
Well, we've got a couple of things working against us here. We've got a bunch of great Border Patrol agents down there, and they're doing everything they possibly can, but having no support from the Biden administration on Title 42 and being able to hold people in Mexico for asylum, they have to let them in. And so the Border Patrol agents' hands are really tied. But the main issues are that Texas has shored up their border with more State Patrol, with National Guard, and Arizona has done the same thing. New Mexico, we have just left a tremendous void in New Mexico. And so when we go down to the border, we go down there and head west of Columbus, I don't know, 10, 15 miles, something like that. And the fence just ends. There's a 3/4 of a mile gap in the fence. The fence, for everybody, is 6-inch square tubing, 30 feet tall, and about 3 inches apart. And it's just miles and miles of it, 30 feet tall. It's a tremendous structure. And it just stops. There's also fiber optics that go along with it. There's digital in-ground monitoring. All that's stopped as well. So on this one rancher's property, we have 3/4 of a mile hole, and there's not just one hole in the fence. Everybody thinks, oh, it's just one hole, but it's not. There's 3 or 4 holes in the fence, and then it stops for miles. And anyways, but on this one particular spot, it's got fence for miles either way. It's really close to the border town of Columbus, and there's 3/4 of a mile gap. So let's just go ahead and put ourselves in the rancher's shoes for the day. He wakes up in the morning and puts his boots on and goes and feeds his horses with his firearm on his side. He puts his firearm on just like the rest of us put a belt on. So he puts that on, he goes and feeds, and he comes back and he gets his family. His family gets in the truck with him because he can't leave his wife and children alone in their house for the day. So they go around and they do their work. Last month, they found 2 dead people on their ranch. Okay, they went to pull up check of water, and there's a dead lady sitting there, and I don't know, maybe she had COVID and died of COVID. Maybe she had some sort of other disease. Maybe she was just slowing the party down and they just asphyxiate her. Who knows, you know? But she's right next to their drinker, and these people are coming through. The groups of illegals are coming through. They're breaking waters. They're terrorizing the livestock. They've got cattle that won't go up in the mountains because there's so many people going through up there. So anyways, here's the life of the rancher. He goes out and takes his family with him. They come home for lunch. They cook lunch or whatever. They go back out. At the end of the day, after his family's been with him, his wife hadn't been able to do any of her tasks. And the kids, they don't get to... You don't miss the school bus when you're in Columbus. I mean, you've got to be there for it. Like, you don't just get dropped off at your house. You can't just go in and lock. So anyways, his family toodles around with him all day. Then when he comes in at night, he's got to take his firearm. He leaves his wife and children in the truck with a loaded firearm so they can protect themselves in case something happened. It's dark. He walks in. He's got to look under every bed. He's got to look in every closet. He's got to secure the entire house. And then he goes back out and tells his wife and his children it's okay to go to bed in their home. And then he walks up on the hill and feeds the horses as his last task of the day. Can you imagine living like that every day, Gene? This is not a third world country. Mm-hmm. We're not going back to the 8th century barbarians but that's what we're dealing with.
That's what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is 1800s type existence. Is anybody listening to their stories? Does anybody care about what these families are going through? I mean,
so I believe Yvette, we were talking off air, but I believe Yvette has sent 2 or 3 letters to the governor pleading for National Guard help down here, just like the other 2 states that there are, our neighbors have done. She's refused to do that. She won't. She flat won't do it. They have reached out to AT&T. They've reached out to Verizon. They have no cell phone service. And what's really dangerous about that is when you're coming from the Mexican side, you can use Mexican towers a few miles up into the border. And if your phone originates in Mexico, you've got that leeway. In the United States, there are no services there, no cell phone services. So we have entire families, and we have Border Patrol agents or police officers that have no cell phone coverage unless they got to pretty much be in Mexico to pick up a Mexican tower. So if they're a mile interior, they don't have any cell phone service. So they've been working with Verizon or AT&T or somebody to try to set a tower up down there so that they can actually have cell phone coverage. They see a group of illegals, they don't call them in immediately because they fear the retaliation, of the cartels, because they know these people aren't just humble people coming up to build fence and try to better their lives and then go back to their family in Mexico for a few months. They're not migrant workers. That's not what we have here. This is a military exercise on the border. They are arresting people with night vision goggles. They're arresting them with $600 Kenetrek hunting boots. They're arresting them with custom-made QU hunting apparel. I mean, these guys are outfitted. The cartels on the border are running the border with these $20,000 and $30,000 drones that fly 5 or 10 miles. They monitor the coming and goings of the Border Patrol agents. When they get to a certain distance away from the border, they say, okay, let's go ahead and cross the group, and they cross the group right then. When they know the Border Patrol agents can't come back, they monitor the ranchers. They leave scouts in the mountains in the United States. I mean, so they have found camps. They find, he said, I don't know, I got 3 feed sacks full of these carpet shoes that they use, because they got to use those carpet shoes to hide their tracks and then not set off the sensors that are in the ground. And but it's an actual military exercise. It is not a peaceful, I'm coming here to better my life. They're coming with drugs. They are bringing people against their will. They're human trafficking. You don't get across the border without the cartel knowing about it, regardless. So they have monopolized, just like the mafia started out monopolizing some businesses, monopolizing gambling, monopolizing prohibition. That's how they got their start. It's the same thing now. The cartel, you don't own a tractor trailer in Mexico and bring goods across without paying a vig without paying your street vig. So.
Yeah, that is truly amazing, and it's going to take a massive change in leadership from the top down to at least acknowledge that this is going on and then lay out a plan of what we're going to do to stop it. Because it sounds to me, if all of this is true, and I have no reason to doubt what you're telling us, it sounds to me like what we're going to have to do is enact our own military type exercises to secure our border, and that means more than just building the rest of the fence. That means going up into the hills and going into all this area and basically sweeping through and getting rid of the infrastructure that they've established and getting the people up here. I asked Yvette Harold, Congresswoman Harold, the last time we had her on the radio, had anybody in all of this discussion of what we're talking about with the issues that need to be addressed, has anybody been talking about repatriation? How many hundreds of thousands of people have been just let across the border over the last 4, 5, 6 months since the Biden administration took over? Has there been any talk about, okay, let's go, as we find them, let's get them and get them out of here? She said that's not really been a part of the discussion right now. And I have a feeling that that's going to have to be a part of the discussion as we look to what political leaders we're going to elect to try to lead that. At least that's my opinion. I don't know how you can have this much influx of population, and then when you finally get the will to shut it down and say we're not going to let this happen anymore, how you don't go through and gather up some of, especially if they commit crimes. It used to be if you committed a crime, that was automatic, would get you out of the country. But I don't even know if that's going on anymore. No. If they get involved with being criminals. Jerry, I was going to ask you, with all this amount of population change that's going on, here in New Mexico and across the country with all of this, that's something that has the potential to impact the next cycle here in 9 years when we count the people again, doesn't it?
Certainly. Most certainly, Gene. And I think the thing that, and I will say this, is that at the meeting last week in Roswell of the Citizen Redistricting Committee, actually former Senator Tim Jennings was there, and Tim brought up a great point. And his point was one of the things he felt like that the legislature missed in formulating this committee and the requirements of the committee was an aspect of economics and what the economics look like as far as each one of these districts. And in his illustration was this, is that we see a lot of minority folks now in southeast New Mexico, as opposed to the last 10-year cycle, that are owned by minorities and operated minorities and have a huge impact on the economies of our area. And so back to your point is that as we see this influx of minorities and possibly immigrants into our area, whether they become naturalized or not, it will have an impact on our economy. And as we look at this, we have to consider that. And as we think about the numbers coming up, if it truly plays as it has been with our numbers coming up the last 10 years, that continues in that direction, yeah, there will be an obvious need and responsibility of the legislature to redistrict here and possibly get more representation. That representation will be probably leaning toward what I just stated.
Right.
So I think that's something, as we look down the road, we have to most certainly take in consideration, and we have to make sure that those are good contributing citizens to the state of New Mexico's economy, and not what we're seeing now with a lot of those, as we would like to say, making a sucking sound on our economy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, or fortunately, it plays on all of our backs, and especially on the backs of southeast New Mexico, that we do have such a huge responsibility to the state and what we're contributing to the coffers of the state right now. We can't continue to do that without having some type of a buffering effect or a monitoring or a control effect on what's happening here. We've got to have that. The Santa Fe has to recognize there has to be something done.
Yeah, there has to be something.
Let's go back and answer the question that was posed earlier. Why are the Cubans that have got their raft and floated over, why are they sent back immediately and we let the southern border be open? Well, that's because of political leanings. We see how Florida is. We see how a Cuban national, when a Cuban shows up, he hates communism.
Right.
He opposes it. He doesn't want anything. He just wants to come and be free and make his own life. But that's not what we have on the southern border.
Right.
That is not what we have. We have people coming wanting a welfare state, wanting to take advantage of the system, and who are essentially in the end going to vote for the Biden administration because of what they're. But yeah. Cubans are not going to allow Cubans.
And there's the human cost in all of this too, because the sheriff mentioned the fentanyl that's coming through, and I think Chaves County had a bust, a pretty good sized fentanyl deal here.
And
I'm
pretty sure they had to come through Eddy County to get to Chaves County.
Well, maybe they took the boot heel route over there. I don't
think so.
But no, you're exactly right. But then you've got people that are sick. I'm certain that there's a certain calculation on the part of these countries south of the border that we can't care for all the sick people that we have in our country, so we'll send them to America.
Sure.
And so this is putting strain on the healthcare system. And the healthcare workers that are being compassionate and trying to help everyone that they can, but the situation that's with that, it puts pressure on the law enforcement. The governor may want 1,000 more law enforcement officers and may want the money to pay for the law enforcement officers, but then what do we do after we catch them and convict them? What do we do? And how many judges are going to be willing to go up against cartel-backed type criminals that come through their courts and stuff like that? It's a really sad situation that we've kind of devolved into.
There's a reason that
right
lots
now.
of federal judges have bodyguards.
Yeah, and for that very reason. So
every citizen, whether we're in Eddy County or United States, has no idea the risk that they are in daily due to the weak southern border that we have. You'd ask yourself, who controls the southern border? We'd say, the Border Patrol, that's their job. Well, the cartel controls the border. Absolutely. They know who goes and who comes across the border. They know what goods and services are provided through through that funnel, and they know where those go, and they run them on this side as well. We would just be appalled if we knew the amount of drugs and how close in contact we'd come with those, or the people running those, or the sex traffickers, or any of the human trafficking, anything like that. We would absolutely be appalled. And so I really appreciate our local sheriff's office, local police departments fighting it. But like you said earlier, we need to go down and stop it at the source. We're being too reactive rather than being proactive. We're just over here just on defense, just like scared little rabbits. Oh, well, we'll just, this is fine. We'll just take what comes. These are good people. These are not good people. These are not good people. And they've, yeah.
We need to make some changes. Well, folks, we're giving the information. Hopefully, and I said this before when we were having the mask discussion with the schools and what our superintendents and our school board officials are having to deal with. We got to convince more of our friends in other parts of New Mexico that they need to maybe change their minds or at least be willing to listen to some of the information. Jerry, I know the county has tried really hard with the Arrowhead study.
Yes.
Just to convince legislators about the financial impact of the oil and gas industry. Hopefully that has had some success.
Yes.
But it sounds like we need a similar type effort on a bigger scale, not just to legislators, but to the population, about what you were talking about, Stephen, about some of these other issues that we're going to have to deal with. So
we met on Saturday. A couple of the commissioners, we went and met with Chaves County commissioners, DeBaca County, Lee County. I think there's another county there. But we met on that, and that's happening all over the state. So the Association of Counties, Rebecca Long is the president, out of Lovington Lovington, Lee County, and she's just amazing. So actually, I've reached out to her for help on this board. I says, what do we do? How do we get the Association of Counties to back these commissioners in Luna County? How do we support the efforts going on by the Luna County Sheriff's Department to try to stop what's going on the border? Because the governor's obviously not doing anything about it, but we are concerned with all of our constituents. We're concerned for not just the citizens of the United States, but the citizens of New Mexico. This is a big deal, and we are the ones that are in danger. And all of our students, all our children that go to school, that go out into any public, any public event, anything like that. These guys, you say, oh, yeah, they're swapping dope here and there. Let me tell you, there's more dope that swaps hands in the Walmart parking lot than anywhere else. That's where it changes hands. And so we have got to get ahead of this thing, and we have got to make everybody aware. So we would love for people to do research and post anything you can on the border with social media. We are working to get all the counties together, working with Association Counties to try to get support there, just like we did for the red flag law a couple of years ago. We've signed multiple resolutions, jointly as counties, and done things like that. And I'm kind of sick of resolutions because they don't really hold any teeth. But maybe there's something that we can do, and we're going to get together with people who are much smarter than myself to help see if we can solve this issue. Because really, on this, we have to circumvent the governor for the good of the state. And so, if there's any way to do that, we're going to try everything we can. Because though she may not care about the safety of the citizens of New Mexico, I guarantee you the Eddy County Commission does. Yeah. And so do most of the other commissions. I'd say probably 28 of them at least in the state of New Mexico. So,
well, on that, we will conclude our interview segment, but thank you so much. I appreciate you coming in and sharing this information and the research. Jerry, always good to see you.
Thank you.
Sharing information that folks need to know about. And we'll have you guys on again real soon to talk more about these issues. Folks want to reach out to you, Stephen. How do you? Is there a way that you want people to reach out to you to contact you?
Yeah, they can email me. I'm a terrible emailer. You can send me a text. You can call me 575-706-7941. So that's 706-7941. I'm happy to take any calls, any help we can get, anything like that.
All right. Sounds like you've got a couple kids that you need to get doing some work today.
Yeah, we're going to have to go put them in yard work or something. They're going to have to learn something because they're not in school. So,
I'm so sorry. But unfortunately, it's the world we live in, so we'll have to get through it. Stephen, thank you so much. Jerry, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We'll see you guys real soon.
Thank you.
All right, let's see what